the loopholes, which is the abuse. Look at the money laundering case, the simplest of the criminal cases, which is the acts. It's direct, it's clear. You can see how these people actually did the smurfing, the layering, used the lawyers, bought these so-called properties and acquired the benefits. So what does the law say? Section 3 says, charge them with the crime of money laundering. They have been charged. What have they done? Application upon application. The prosecutor is there. He calls me with the frustrations every day.
Are these people?
One day I'm sick, and no Kenyan, no high-profile Kenyan is ever charged without falling sick. And I'm not saying you can't fall sick.
The justice chain is long. It's a rotary, and each of us has a contribution to make.
There's the need for us to look at all institutions, to look at all stakeholders, and push the responsibility where it belongs. If the responsibility is for the multi-agency team, let it be pushed there. If the responsibility is for regulatory institutions, let it be pushed there. But not, again, the issue of backpassing.
And that's why we are not able to ask the judiciary to account, and that's why you feel the frustration of this gentleman, when they say, we brought this case 7 years ago, there have been 12 applications in 12 different courts. One is called judicial review, the other one is called constitutional review, the other one is called motion of this and the other, and there is no movement. The bigger the amount of money involved, the more prominent and senior the lawyers involved, the more the delay.
All right, so that's the blame game, that everybody blaming the other person. Gentlemen, the AG's office, the judiciary, the DPP, the ESCC, everybody seems to believe that the other person is not doing what they are supposed to do. And you were just talking about Eurobond before we went on a break, almost fighting about it. And it came up during that meeting at State House, that anti-corruption summit, I think that's what it was called. And everybody seemed to be saying, in fact, the president, I think at some point chided the Auditor General for attempting to go to the US to find out. Can we ever get to the bottom of any corruption scandal in this country?
Yes, we can, Joe.
Why haven't we got to the bottom of any?
In Nigeria, they started by jailing like 6 governors. It is a fact that in Kenya, all the ODM governors, without exception, have been alleged to have indulged in corruption. The proceeds of that corruption is what funds NASA.
But in fairness, that's not
only...
No, in fairness, it's not just ODM
without
governors.
exception.
You will not parry
and
that
the cases are in court.
In fairness, all. I mean, there have been other governors who are not ODM who have been implicated.
Yes, but I'm saying for ODM, all. You give me one of them. Who has not been?
You will not parry that.
The Auditor General's report actually names all 47 governors, to be fair.
To be fair.
Yes,
but,
all of
fine.
them. All of
so they have no moral lockers to say corruption is our side. The devolved units are mini governments. They are administered by NASA. They are administered by ODM. And that is where we are finding, at least most of the ones that are highlighted, are the ones presided over by ODM, by NASA.
You see, David, one hopes
but
that...
there have been cases in Bungoma, for example. There have cases in Muranga.
We have cases all over. You said it yourself.
There have been cases
starting with the Mombasa, Kilifi, Raguma, you name them. If they are so white, they call themselves white as cotton, why haven't they reined in their governors before they come to attack the national government? What have they done in their areas of jurisdiction where there are all these rampant cases of corruption?
Norman, you can answer that as I wait for David to tell us what they have done.
No, seriously.
One hopes that, and you listen patiently hoping that David can make good use of the airtime he has to at least make something tangible about corruption. Unfortunately, everything he says just falls flat. One, if you look at all jurisdictions where there has been a successful war waged against corruption, that war is not waged by the other state organs of the state. That war is waged from the highest office in the land. You look at the example of Tanzania, you look at the example of Nigeria, you look at the example of Indonesia, and so many other jurisdictions where there has been a successful attempt to tame the ghosts of corruption. But in this country, there is no goodwill, there is no political goodwill from the highest office in the land to fight corruption. You cannot fight corruption, one, when your own deputy is deeply imbued in every corruption scandal that comes up, when your own cabinet secretaries are imbued deeply in corruption, and you come out in public and defend them, until the very last minute when you cannot defend them, then you disown them. What you have consistently, despite having the privilege of being briefed by the National Intelligence Service, by all security agencies, you are able to have your internal investigation to know whether corruption scandal has occurred or not. So simply the president is not in charge when it comes to corruption. Thirdly, if there has been corruption scandals touching on members of NASA governance, why hasn't the state, using the apparatus at their disposal, conducted investigations, arrested these people, and avail them in court? We will not go to court to defend a governor who has been involved in corruption.
Joe.
And there is no second name for corruption. Corruption is theft of public resources.
Joe.
We will not defend a governor. Lastly, it is very easy to peddle a lie that a governor is funding the NASA campaign. I sit in the NASA campaign. I'm a signatory to the NASA Secretariat accounts. But I have never seen a single coin from any sitting governor. Murada is just exposing a practice that they have persisted in Jubilee.
Norman, but there are people who would say that we haven't seen that public indignation with the governors who have been implicated. We haven't seen them admonished.
Raila has done it. In a devolution conference in Kisumu, he told our governors, if you put your hand in the till, you are on your own. We will not defend you.
Joe.
We will not stand with you where you are stealing.
Okay, David,
what has been there has been selective justice by Jubilee.
All right, let's have David.
Yeah.
Just last
week. Please tell us what Jubilee has done about its governors who have been mentioned.
Just last week, Oparanya was required to report to the Senate. He rushed to court. And it was on charges of corruption to answer about how money has been applied.
And who is the chairman who was summoning Oparanya? Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. It is not a Jubilee member.
No. It was a committee. It is a committee of the Senate. No. Khalwale was settling political scores because he's a competitor. We know that.
No.
But what I'm saying is that he defied.
But what else could they do? I mean, they summoned him and asked him to appear.
And he didn't.
What else could they do
and when he
as
didn't,
members of parliament?
They wanted to politicize. They want us to go and have him arrested. It becomes a political issue.
No.
This
you are
is
the
not
state.
the season. My friend.
You are the state.
Okay, Norman, let David have his time.
Units. This guy just came on the scene the other day for NASA. We know, and it has been established that Raila, though all the governors in ODM have been funding Raila.
Well, you can't prove that, David.
We have the evidence.
I
was not prepared to table it. If you ask me, I can bring it. No, we know. I can say it because it's there.
No.
All right?
Okay, but proceed. But I don't see the evidence, so I'm not
sure.
You see,
he's trying to make this topic an intellectual, academic exercise.
Raila has run for
we are dealing with
3
the
times
real
without
issues,
governors.
the real issues of corruption. And it takes two to tango. These people are just looking for an opportunity.
So is there a Jubilee governor?
Is there
a Jubilee governor, David, who has been implicated in corruption? Yes or no?
There are.
What has Jubilee done about them?
In corruption.
What has Jubilee done about them?
No, they have left the agencies that are charged with prosecuting the allegations.
What's wrong with NASA doing that?
He has just mentioned the deputy president. Tell me one instance where the deputy president has been arraigned in court on charges of corruption. Tell me one.
That is what you should be telling us.
No.
Not.
You are the one who's talking about it.
Why haven't you arraigned him in court?
Is that the measure? Is that the measure that people are corrupt when they are arraigned in court?
You cannot go throwing people's names. You see, these guys are experts at throwing names.
But you are throwing Raila's name here.
Because even after you have thrown the name, even if it is not found to be true, it's already out there. That is why I'm also quite happy now to throw their names. Because we've been quiet for too long. They've been pretending that they are saints. And yet we have a catalogue of their corruption scandals. We must tell Kenyans, if we want to fight corruption, let's strengthen those institutions that are charged with fighting corruption. The presidency can only do so much. The executive can only do so much. They cannot come to arrest you unless they have cause to believe the investigating agencies have done their job, the EACC have done their job, and then when they take the files to the DPP, we expect that the DPP does his thing, and then we expect the courts to do their thing, then we jail them.
Okay, wait, let's listen to the latest spat that we've seen in the political rallies and everywhere about cartels that are alleged to exist in the political circles. Let's just listen to that and we'll come back to this discussion.
Now that they have accepted that their campaign is financed by corrupt cartels, the people of Kenya want to know what is the agreement with these corrupt cartels so that they can finance the NASA campaign.
Mwenye kupatia Ruto pesa zote ni Jimmy Wanjigi. Mahali walikosania na muuliza Jimmy Wanjigi aambie Kenyans the truth about William Ruto. Ikiwa nyumbani kwangu wakaja wanaume watatu. Mmoja William Ruto. Wengine Uhuru Kenyatta. Hiyo ilikuwa kabla ya mimi kuungana na Raila 2013. Mwenye kuwaleta kwangu was a businessman. I refer to him as a prominent Kenyan businessman. Jina lake Jimmy Wanjigi.
Gentlemen.
Even
Jimmy Wanjigi is a
the
Jubilee
former vice president is not answering the question the deputy president is asking. He's asking, you have admitted that you're in bed with these cartels. What are you doing in bed with people? Now he's saying they are prominent businessmen just because they are financing them.
Norman, please.
You know, it is very cheap. I've said that Jimmy Wanjigi is a Jubilee skunk, and they must carry it. He was with them.
What is he doing with you?
If there is any corruption, we have not been in government for him to have run government business and make money. If there are scandals he has done, these are scandals he did between 2013 and the time they fell out with him. They have evidence of these scandals. If they have evidence that he has been involved in corruption, why can't they arrest Jimmy Wanjigi today and put him behind bars and prosecute him?
David, that's a fair question, isn't it? I mean, if you're saying that these people are hanging out with Jimmy Wanjigi...
Why should you say that...
Okay, Norman, let me ask the question.
It is fallacious for the state to say that there is a terrorist here, yet they cannot arrest that terrorist.
I like how he says that it's our skunk, but when it is in their room, it's not smelling.
No, it's your skunk.
All right, David.
So is it smelling in your room?
It's your skunk.
But is it smelling?
Let me ask the question,
if
David.
We give you a skunk
it's you
and
who's
you take
putting it in your room, in our room. He's not in our room.
And you carry it, you have to deal with the smell.
I've told you that I'm the one running NASA finances
Norman, let
for
me
this
ask
campaign.
the question.
I've
Let me
not
ask
seen
the
money
question.
from Wanjigi.
David, the implication from what I have seen on the campaign trail from the deputy president talking about Jimmy Wanjigi, he believes that he's a cartel, part of a cartel, corrupt cartel, whatever it is.
Whatever.
Right? And then says, well, now he's funding NASA and everything.
Right. Yes.
So one would assume that because this government has been in power over the last 4 years, they've always known that, and this guy apparently is in this country.
Yeah.
So why is it that he's walking free?
No. The wheels of justice, they turn. And they turn slowly.
No, but he's not in court.
But they surely turn.
Is he in court?
And they will grind at the right time.
Is he in court?
Come on. There have been allegations.
Is he in court?
Bandit up and down. Oh, yes, in several. And even the latest ones for the taxes. You have seen it. It's in the media. It is out there. The government is doing its bit. The government agencies are doing their bit.
Corruption. A tax demand is not corruption.
It is
We've
not
said
that.
you have evidence that this guy has been involved in corruption scandals. Please, come take him, prosecute him. You have evidence. You have investigating agencies.
You know, Joe.
Why are you allowing him to roam freely if you have evidence against him?
Because those agencies are probably still putting together the evidence, like he said, so that it can stand up in court. My only issue is that he admits that Jimmy is our skunk, who is in their room, but now that he's in their room, he's not smelling.
Jimmy is not in our room.
Friend.
Joe,
He has admitted it openly. It's not about personalities, by the way.
The newspaper
and
stories
I
that
have
came
no
out.
issue with how Jimmy does his business.
The newspaper stories that came out clearly stated the prominent role of one Jimmy Wanjigi in crafting the Jubilee alliance in 2013.
He did not. Those are stories. I was there. He didn't.
It's on the basis of the same stories that you are trying to present Jimmy as being a finance. And I've told you
but
here.
But we know. These things are in the public domain.
No.
The Greenfield airport thing was in the public domain. He was the agent, whatever you want to call them. The, what do you call, not the High Grand Falls, which was a scandal by Raila also. He was part
Which scandal by Raila?
My friend,
Jimmy, don't just imagine scandals. Don't just imagine scandals.
Which?
Don't just imagine
and by the way,
scandals.
let me tell you,
Jimmy,
my friend,
skunk, you must carry it.
These things, they will surely come. And they are coming. And I said it the other day, Joe, when the president gets sworn in, August 9, these guys better look for places. Because the president's legacy will be the fight against the corrupt cartels.
What has stopped him from that since 2013?
He has done what he could. But
you're saying that somehow it's going to be different.
Forward. No.
What will change?
You see, this season was about infrastructure, was about health, was about education, was about the last mile and lighting. The next one, the single focus for His Excellency will be to jail these people.
That wasn't in the manifesto, David.
It is very strongly spelled out in this manifesto.
The manifesto still talks about a lot of infrastructure, free secondary education.
It is the highlight, the legacy for the president will be the fight against corruption. And these guys, they can run, but they can't hide. We'll go for them, and we'll get them.
David, I unfortunately have to repeat this. I said that when you get the airtime to make your point, one hopes that you are going to
I'm not here to engage you in an academic conversation.
No, there's nothing academic
here. Me, I'm not.
There is nothing
I want us to call a spade a spade.
Just yap for the sake of it.
Not a big spoon. You can use all the kind of manner of language you want. But I've said this. The president's legacy will be the fight against those cartels, against corruption, and we know where he'll start.
Uhuru himself is a cartel, so how can he jail cartels?
Can he be a cartel?
Will he jail himself? The good
can
thing
you even
is that
go and discuss? Can you go and discuss business with Uhuru?
The good thing is that.
Can you discuss a deal?
The good thing is that he will be in Gatundu on August 9.
Can you go and discuss a deal with Uhuru? I can discuss a deal with Raila. I can discuss a deal with Musalia. I can discuss with Weta. Can you discuss a deal with Uhuru?
In fact, to discuss a deal with Uhuru, you just need to go to the nearest bar
and
gentlemen,
meet
where do you start?
And you cut the deal.
Gentlemen, after the show, I will give you some 50 minutes to sort this thing out. But let's move on a bit more seriously about the fight against corruption. We've seen the agencies complaining. We've seen the president saying, Nifanya nini jamani. We've seen the deputy president complaining about cartels. We've seen the opposition saying the government is not doing anything. In fact, we can just listen to what the president said at that summit.
The judiciary, I have even no role. I even actually challenged it, and they went because it's themselves, right? And I was told that the Judicial Service Commission is the one that has the role, and they went because wenyewe kwa wenyewe kujidefend. They'll give me one name, and my only role is to sign. Who is a judge? Who is the Chief Justice? I have no role. But yet, I stand accused that the executive is not doing enough. What have you got to do? I don't even have power, like I said, to appoint you or to sack you. So, mnataka nifanye nini jameni?
Follow the route of Mr. Magufuli. People are in jail in Tanzania. Mr. Kagame took his own brother to jail. And we would go to visit him on the weekends in jail. Say, yes, but you wrong the country, and this is where you belong. That's when you will be able to rein in this animal called corruption. But if other people are untouchable, then the so-called war against corruption is all rubbish.
So David, right now the president says He doesn't even have powers to appoint a judge. He only signs. He cannot control what happens in the judiciary. He has no power over the ESCC. He has no power over DPP. He basically has no power over the independent institutions. And yet you're saying in the second term, he's going to be more lethal in the fight against corruption. So what's going to change?
We're going to change the law. We're going to have enough numbers to change the law. You see, Wanjiko, or the common person on the street, for them, the buck stops with the president. But you cannot expect him to do those things with the hands tied. And he's right. He's saying, I have done my best. I have done my bit. But the other organs are not doing their part. And the buck then comes back to blame him.
To amend the Constitution?
We will amend the law. That will give him executive authority to even make sure some of those people mentioned in some of those things cannot get bail. We'll amend the law to make sure that, you know, in some of those countries,
which law?
They even chop off their hands. You know that?
You want to do that?
Like in the Arab countries?
You want to do that?
The hand that is thieving. Yeah. We can make the law. If we get the numbers, we'll pass it. Okay. As long as it is the law, you see, these guys just romanticize this war against corruption. What we can do is also have a major conference involving all the stakeholders. Because, you see, when they say, we say, it's a country that actually looks very bad. Internationally, we're painted as a very dirty country. And yet, the political will that he's talking about on both divides is lurking. And what we need to agree with them, if we agree to amend that law, that will give the president sweeping powers to undertake some of those actions that he can now not do because his hands are tied. If they want to cooperate, we will pass that law.
Norman, would you be supporting that kind of law?
If they were to pass the law to cut hands, nobody in Jubilee will have a hand, including Mrathe himself. Because Jubilee is a complete system that fits
but does he make a fair point, Norman?
It doesn't make any fair point.
That's a good joke.
It doesn't.
Will you answer the question? Will you support?
Okay, David, I can answer all my questions by myself. Norman, is it not fair to say that the president is being blamed, yet we have independent institutions that are supposed to do all these things, the ESCC, the DPP, the judiciary, over which the president doesn't have direct control?
You see, I will give you a diagnosis of how the situation is. The president's excuse is lame. If the president identified the institutional structure as the weakest chain in the fight against corruption, he has had the numbers in parliament to fix that. He didn't do it. So that what has been done actually was to water down the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Because the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, if you look at the scheme and the architecture of our constitution, is actually supposed to be on the same elevation as the Chapter 15 independent commissions. And that gives it enough leverage and room to be able to operate. But if you look at the way it has been structured now, so much power is given to the Secretariat, very little power is given to the commissioners. You have a weak structure that cannot sustain the war against corruption. Two, if you look at our financial markets, the way they have been structured, they are structured in such a way that transactions in illicit money is completely protected legally. So there have been no attempts to open up the manner in which our financial markets are structured.
If NASA were to take over on the 8th of August, what are those things that you would do that then when we come and ask the president, who will be from NASA in that case, about corruption, then they can have real powers that they can be held to account on?
The first thing is that there will be no sacred cows in the fight against corruption. The heads that have stood out for far long as the emblems of corruption will have to come down. Two, we will completely restructure the manner in which the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is set out today, so that we have a commission that can adequately, competently handle corruption cases in investigations and prosecution, so that any files that goes to the DPP has pungent evidence that is sufficient to sustain charges in court. 2, we have to structure and resource the DCI, the Director of Criminal Investigation, which basically acts as a backup to the Ethics and Corruption Commission. If you look at the number of corruption cases in Kenya today, you have barely in a year.
What we saw in 2011, Norman, in fairness, when the EACC was dismembered, at the time when PLO, for instance, was the director, some of the members of parliament who had been mentioned at this time, the trigger at the time that really caused the EACC to go down at the time, were actually members of ODM that forms part of the coalition that you lead, the secretariat.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You see, Joe, we are operating in a completely different environment. Our country has never been bedeviled with the ghost of corruption as it is now. And unless there is firm action on the part of the executive, and I can tell you, we have seen this happen before. If the president puts his weight and puts his feet down and tells the legislature,
David,
I want this law to go
through, there is no way my colleagues who are monitoring what people are saying on social media. Just your brief response as we go.
I think I want to agree with him. If they could agree that we strengthen the institutions that are charged with the fight against corruption, we would be happy to do that. But I think they're trying to politicize the war against corruption. And we have been able to demonstrate it cuts across the political divide. So there's no way they can stand there looking saintly and trying to besmirch the other side. Let's all agree it is a vice, it is wrong, and we want to go after the corrupt.
All right, thank you. Let me just go to my colleagues Zinzi Kibiku and Hassan Juma, who've been monitoring the reactions to our conversation all evening. From 6 p.m. we've been discussing the threat of corruption, a real and present danger, some people call it. Zinzi and Hassan, what are people saying right now?
All right, thank you so much, Joe. Before we even take a look at some of the feedback that we're getting, Hassan, I think it's only right that we remind our viewers what we were asking. And tonight we were asking, who do you blame most for corruption in Kenya? So about 2,000 of you have voted. We had the citizen, judiciary, the EACC, or the president. And as you can see, 55% out of the 2,001 votes, 55%, the president is leading with that, and then the citizen follows. Citizen follows with 22%, okay?
12% and 11% EACC.
So we're getting a lot of feedback in regards to tonight's topic here in Kivumbi when we're putting a spotlight on corruption. Chris, you say the president, the CJ, and the speaker must set the tone in their respective arms. It is unhelpful to hide in EACC when one has power to sack and suspend. You go on further to say, give the EACC prosecutorial powers, and that's just one tweet from Chris. So what else do we have, Hassan, on your
James
end?
Kaburu says, we Kenyans are to blame as a whole. We the citizens are always willing to pay a bribe. It's a societal problem.
Okay. Let's take a look at this other one before we come here. Moha, you say it is now 8th August to put the spade off by electing non-corrupt leaders. We must vote wisely. Okay.
Solomon Limiri, kabla usome hizi Zinzi, Solomon Limiri anasema nitalaumu prezo, and I will also give bribe because in Kenya everything is paid for any favor.
Okay. All right. Let's just read some of the tweets here in regards to that. So, Kevin, you're asking, what is the leadership there for? Just a decorative society object. The president, at Gangster, he says the president is only one person. Expecting him to fight corruption all by himself is ignorant and lack of understanding of our constitution. He has a point there because corruption, fighting corruption does start from the citizens going up.
Oh, yes.
Okay? What else? Let's see what else we have in regards to tweets. Before we hand over back to Joe.
Mikhail anasema, tell me the logic in this. Someone pickpockets and is jailed for 5 years. The other one loots billions but is asked to step down.
Oh, okay. There's one here says, I believe corruption ever stand a nightmare in our nation that never ends. And you also come back and you say, could it be better if corruption be a pillar to consider for our politicians to remain on ethnicity? Okay, so that's just some of the feedback that we're getting on our social media platforms. And tonight we were just asking, who is it to blame for corruption in Kenya, right? And we've been getting so many feedback. 2001 votes that was casted in regards to that. As you can see, the president is the one that took that lead.
55%.
55%, Hassan. And citizens come in at 22%.
Oh, yes.
So you can tell we still play a big role. All right, so here on the social media desk, it's time we say goodnight. But before we do so, we want to hand you back over to our managing editor, Joe Ageo. Joe?
All right, thank you very much, Zinzi and Hassan Juma, our social media gurus there. Please, gentlemen and lady, go get some sleep. Thank you very much. Let's bring this home, gentlemen. Two categories. This obviously not a scientific poll, but at least anecdotally, a good number of people hold the president responsible for what happens with corruption.
Yes.
Are you surprised by that?
I'm not, and I said it earlier. The Wanjiku in the street, the buck stops with the president. Wanjiku doesn't know the limitations and just how far the president can go. He does his best. Look, he talked about the structures and the infrastructure of the EACC. The Kinisu saga, hardly how many months? And we moved in, everybody, on allegations again, not on any substance. Allegations. He moved. What did the president do? He appointed Archbishop Abukala, a man of God, somebody who we believe is above reproach. What other political commitment do you want to see the president do? He appointed an archbishop, retired.
That's a big conversation, whether it was the president himself who appointed, but we'll come...
He had names
We'll invite you from another...
He had names to choose from.
Show. Norman, your closing thoughts. We have to go home.
I think to fight corruption in this country, it needs firm political resolve from the highest office in this country. We're not going to fight corruption through charity, through prayers, or through miracles instituted by a religious leader. It will take firm action from the president to drive and wage the war firmly against corruption with no sacred cows. And it starts with the president's family not doing business with the state.
So I must say this. Most of those things happened under the watch of the NAC administration, where Raila was part of, under the coalition government, where Raila was part of.
We're out of time.
You can always say that.
And
it's
in
a constant
fact, most of these cases are historical.
All right.
It's a constant excuse, David.
Let's finish on that historical note, gentlemen. And finally, to a page from my notebook. It is just 28 days to the election, and the rhetoric on corruption is ratcheting up. Each side of the political divide is pointing fingers at the other. In fact, over the last few weeks, it feels like a contest to determine who is more corrupt than the other. What a tragedy the days of our lives have become. The truth of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that corruption in Kenya is real. It is on the roads every day. It is in public and private offices. It is in government in form of grand theft that is now defined in billions. The current government has been in power for 4.5 years. It promised to deal with corruption under its worthy pillar. It even pledged to give prosecutorial powers to the EACC. That has, of course, remained a mirage. It must therefore shoulder the responsibility, even if only at a political level, for the bulk of the graft that the country is choking under. To see top government functionaries lamenting about alleged corruption cartels in the opposition, yet they hold the instruments of power, is quite frankly to take the country for a very long ride. The opposition, on the other hand, has to make a more convincing case that they are the better deal. Nearly half of the counties in the country are controlled by governors who were elected on an opposition ticket. They have not been spared in the sleazy reports that come out of the Auditor General's office and other watchdogs. Can the opposition truly point to even one that can be taken as a model of what a NASA government would look like? The sense one gets on the streets is that Kenyans are numbed by the mind-boggling figures that hit the headlines every day of money spirited away from public coffers. The country is looking for real answers, not lofty campaign speeches aimed at scoring cheap political points. The decision is 4 weeks away, ladies and gentlemen. But will anyone decide who to vote in or out based on their anti-corruption record? I am not holding my breath. But how I pray that you prove me wrong on August 8th. And that is just the way it is. Thank you for watching Kivumbi 2017. Goodbye, good night, and God bless. My name is Joe Agayo.